Imagine a man born on a tiny, rugged island, rising from obscurity to become one of the most powerful figures in history, shaping the destiny of nations with his sheer will and military genius. This is the story of Napoleon Bonaparte, a name that echoes through time as both a hero and a tyrant, a revolutionary and a dictator. Buckle up, because we're diving into the whirlwind life of a man who changed the world forever. Let's unravel the epic tale of Napoleon, from his humble beginnings to his dramatic fall, in a journey that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Napoleon Bonaparte came into this world on August 17, 1769, on the small Mediterranean island of Corsica. His family belonged to the Corsican nobility, but they weren't rolling in wealth by any means. They had status, but their pockets were often empty. As a young boy, Napoleon left his island home to study in mainland France, where he enrolled in a military school. By 1785, he graduated from a prestigious French military academy, ready to make his mark. He joined the French army and quickly climbed the ranks, becoming a second lieutenant, a sign of the brilliance and ambition that would define his life. The late 18th century was a time of chaos and change in France. In 1789, the French Revolution erupted, shaking the very foundations of the country. Within just 3 years, the revolutionaries had toppled the monarchy, and France was declared a republic. During the early days of this upheaval, Napoleon was on leave from the army, back in Corsica. It was there that he aligned himself with a pro-democracy group known as the Jacobins, showing his early support for the revolutionary cause. But not everything went smoothly. By 1793, Napoleon and his family found themselves in hot water after a falling out with the local governor in Corsica. They were forced to flee the island and return to mainland France, where Napoleon rejoined the military. During this turbulent time, Napoleon made a key connection that would shape his early career. He befriended Augustin Robespierre, the brother of the infamous Maximilien Robespierre, a leading Jacobin figure who played a central role in the Reign of Terror. This was a dark period in France, lasting about 2 years, where anyone suspected of opposing the revolution, especially the wealthy bourgeoisie or royalty, was executed without mercy. With the Robespierre brothers as allies, Napoleon's star began to rise, and he was promoted to the rank of brigadier general, a remarkable achievement for someone so young. However, alliances in revolutionary France were dangerous. In 1794, both Maximilien and Augustin Robespierre were sent to the guillotine, and Napoleon, due to his past ties with them, was placed under house arrest. It was a low point, but it wouldn't last. The fall of the French monarchy had sent shockwaves across Europe, terrifying kings and queens who feared that democracy might inspire their own people to revolt. This fear led to conflict, as many European nations turned against France, setting the stage for years of war. By 1796, Napoleon was given a chance to prove himself on a grand scale. Despite commanding far fewer troops, he led a stunning campaign against Austria, one of France's fiercest rivals. Within a year, he forced Austria to sign the Treaty of Campo Formio, which expanded French territory significantly. His success made him a national hero. At this time, France was governed by a 5-person council called the Directory, which had been in power since 1795. After his victory over Austria in 1797, the Directory offered Napoleon the chance to invade England. He turned it down, knowing that the French Navy was no match for the mighty British Royal Navy. Instead, he proposed a daring plan to invade Egypt, aiming to disrupt British trade routes to India. In July 1798, Napoleon's forces crushed the Egyptian army, known as the Mamluks, at the Battle of the Pyramids. But his triumph was short-lived. In August of that year, the British Royal Navy destroyed the French fleet at the Battle of the Nile, leaving Napoleon's army stranded in Egypt. Undeterred, he pushed forward in early 1799, invading what is now Syria, then part of the Ottoman Empire. However, His campaign faltered with a failed siege at Acre, located in modern-day Israel. Things were looking grim, and Napoleon found himself in a tough spot. Meanwhile, back in France, political instability was brewing. Sensing opportunity, he made a bold and risky decision. He abandoned his army in Egypt and returned to France to seize his chance at power. The Directory had become deeply unpopular by 1799, and Napoleon, along with a group of allies, orchestrated a coup known as the Coup of 18 Brumaire. The 5-member Directory was replaced by a 3-member consulate, with Napoleon named as the first consul. Essentially, he became the most powerful man in France, holding a position akin to a president, but with far greater control. In June of 1800, Napoleon once again defeated the Austrians at the Battle of Marengo, a victory that solidified his grip on power. 2 years later, in 1802, Britain and France signed the Treaty of Amiens, bringing a brief period of peace between the two nations, lasting about a year. Napoleon understood that France had been through decades of turmoil, with revolutions and political chaos tearing the country apart. He set out to bring stability by centralizing the government and introducing sweeping reforms. He overhauled the banking system, improved education, and supported the arts and sciences. He even reconciled with the Catholic Church, a significant move in a predominantly Catholic nation, by mending ties with the Pope. But perhaps his most lasting legacy from this time is the Napoleonic Code, a set of laws that clearly defined rights and rules regarding property, individual freedoms, colonial matters, and family law. It became a cornerstone of legal systems around the world. In 1802, Napoleon took a major step to secure his power forever. A constitutional amendment declared him first consul for life. Just 2 years later, in 1804, he went even further, crowning himself Emperor of France. This marked the beginning of the Napoleonic Wars, a series of conflicts from 1803 to 1815 that would define his reign. To fund these wars, Napoleon made a historic decision in 1803. He sold French territory in North America to the United States under President Thomas Jefferson for a sum of $15 million. This deal, known as the Louisiana Purchase, doubled the size of the United States. In October of 1805, the British Royal Navy dealt another crushing blow to France at the Battle of Trafalgar, destroying much of the French fleet. But just 2 months later, Napoleon achieved what many consider his greatest triumph at the Battle of Austerlitz, also called the Battle of the Three Emperors. Facing much larger forces from Russia, Austria, and the Holy Roman Empire, Napoleon emerged victorious, shattering his enemies. The Holy Roman Empire was so weakened that it dissolved, transforming into the Confederation of the Rhine, a group of smaller states in what is now Germany. These states were forced to supply troops and resources to Napoleon and acted as a protective buffer against France's eastern enemies, Austria and Prussia. Napoleon had been repeatedly outmaneuvered by the British at sea, and he knew a direct naval battle would end in disaster. So, he turned to a new strategy: economic warfare. He introduced the Continental System, a massive blockade designed to cripple Britain by banning French allies and neutral countries from trading with them. In 1807, Napoleon struck a major blow against Russia at the Battle of Friedland, forcing the Russian ruler, Alexander I, to sign the Treaty of Tilsit, a peace agreement. 2 years later, in 1809, he defeated Austria yet again at the Battle of Wagram, further expanding the French Empire. But even at the height of his power, cracks were beginning to show. The Continental System, meant to strangle Britain economically, was causing resentment among France's allies and neutrals. In 1810, Russia withdrew from the system, infuriating Napoleon. Determined to punish them, he made a fateful decision in the summer of 1812. He invaded Russia with an enormous army of around 600,000 men. Many historians see this as the beginning of his downfall. The Russians employed a devastating tactic called scorched earth. burning their own cities and resources to deny the French army supplies. As Napoleon's forces marched deeper into the harsh, freezing Russian landscape, they were unprepared for the long campaign ahead. In September of 1812, the French clashed with Russian forces at the Battle of Borodino, a brutal fight that left heavy losses on both sides. Napoleon eventually reached Moscow, the Russian capital, only to find it abandoned. He waited for a month, hoping the Russians would surrender, but they didn't. With winter closing in and supplies running low, he had no choice but to retreat. The journey back was a nightmare. Of the 600,000 troops who began the campaign, only 100,000 survived the brutal cold, starvation, and constant attacks. While Napoleon was reeling from this disaster, his enemies saw their chance. In the Iberian Peninsula, Spanish, Portuguese, and British forces united to push French troops out. By 1813, at the Battle of Leipzig, also known as the Battle of the Nations, Prussian, Swedish, Austrian, and Russian forces combined to defeat Napoleon. He was forced to retreat to France. In March of 1814, this coalition captured Paris, the French capital. A month later, in April, Napoleon was forced to abdicate his throne. The Treaty of Fontainebleau was signed, ending the war and exiling Napoleon to the small island of Elba, off the coast of Italy. But Napoleon wasn't done yet. In a daring move, he escaped Elba in 1815, returning to France with over 1,000 loyal supporters. He marched to Paris, where the reigning monarch, King Louis XVIII, fled. This began what is known as the 100 Days Campaign. Napoleon quickly rallied a small army, planning to defeat his enemies one by one instead of facing a massive coalition. He invaded Belgium in June of 1815, where British and Prussian forces were stationed. He won an initial victory at the Battle of Ligny, but his success was fleeting. Just 2 days later, at the Battle of Waterloo, the British and Prussians crushed his army. Napoleon was forced to surrender once more. This time, he was exiled to the remote British-controlled island of St. Helena, where he spent the last 5 years of his life. He passed away due to health issues, and was later buried in a tomb in Paris. Napoleon's life is a paradox. He saw himself as a child of the Enlightenment, championed ideas of liberty and equality, yet his actions often contradicted those values. He re-established slavery in Haiti, a French colony, during his rule. As emperor, he created a new aristocracy, handing out noble titles to friends and followers. And most glaringly, he ruled as a dictator, consolidating power in ways that mirrored the very monarchy he once opposed. Yet his impact on history is undeniable. During his campaign in Egypt in 1799, a French soldier discovered the Rosetta Stone, an artifact that unlocked the secrets of Egyptian hieroglyphics, a language lost for nearly 2,000 years. Napoleon's story is one of ambition, triumph, and tragedy. It's a tale of revolution, where the masses overthrew a corrupt system, only to find themselves under a new kind of authoritarian rule. His legacy is complex. A brilliant military leader who reshaped Europe, but also a man whose hunger for power led to his downfall. From the small island of Corsica to the vast battlefields of Europe, Napoleon Bonaparte remains a figure who inspires both admiration and debate. His life reminds us of the fine line between greatness and hubris, between revolution and tyranny. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey through history. If you enjoyed this story, please consider supporting me so I can bring more tales like this to life. Until next time, take care and keep exploring the past.